Let's start with our feet hip width apart and place the hands at the back of the head. Interlacing the hands, bringing the elbows out to the side, thinking straight away about lengthening elbows to the opposite sides of the room. But actually, because you're doing that at the same time, what will actually happen is your shoulder blades will round and just come slightly round your upper back. Bring those elbows forwards a little bit, giving yourself a little bit of an armpit hug. Lengthen and pull and lift the top back corner of the top of your head up towards the ceiling by cupping that with the base of your hands. Send your tailbone down towards the floor, especially if you're quite curved in your lower back like I am. And then let's just think about where the weight is through the feet. So have a rock forwards and backwards. Take the weight onto the balls of the feet, onto the heels, forwards and backwards. Find that middle point, and then while we're lifting the spine, lifting the rib cage off of the hips, trying to get that lovely length in the spine, I want you to push down through your feet into the floor. So 3 points of contact on both feet. Push all 3 down equally and lift the top of the head up towards the ceiling. As you breathe in, grow even taller. As you breathe out, grow taller still. As you're taking these a couple more breaths, think about where that breath is going, hopefully into the sets of gills at the front of the ribs and the back of the ribs, expanding them. And then when you breathe out, try and keep that expansion, try and keep that width in the chest, and lift the pelvic floor, draw the belly button away from your waistband, if you can. It's quite a difficult concept. So we're breathing in, lengthening everything. We're working really hard here. And then just allow the arms to lower, but keep that sense of lift in the spine. We're going to use the floor for the next bit to push our feet outwards. So I'm sort of doing this with my hands. Imagine you're trying to split your yoga mat or whatever you're standing on, split it down the middle by pushing your feet outwards. So we were pushing down, now we're just relaxing with nice straight legs. Now push outwards. So outwards towards your little toe side, but actually the circumference of the feet is equal on both sides. So pushing out, notice whether you feel any activation in any of the muscles anyway. I feel a little bit of switching on my outside thighs and hips. Relax, come into the middle, push down into the floor, still thinking about lengthening the spine all the way through these actions. Relax again, so keeping the straight legs, keeping the length in the spine. Now draw the legs inwards towards each other. And this, for me, feels very strong on the inside thighs. It changes the tone of the inside thighs completely and will really activate the pelvic floor. So relaxing. So let's push outwards. So you probably can't see much change. I've relaxed. I'm pushing down now. When I'm pushing down especially, I'm trying to lift the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. Relaxing, just so that I can notice the difference between when the muscles are switched on and when they're not. And now I'm drawing my feet in towards each other. Checking that your weight is in the middle of those 2 front points on the front of the feet and the back of the heel. Pushing out one more time. So pushing out, hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax, push down. See if you can get a little bit more height. A little bit more length in that spine. Using the floor to achieve that. Relax and now draw in. Feeling that activation around the inside thighs, pelvic floor is lifted, very active. I automatically draw my belly button back towards my spine a little bit. Great, and then relax. Wonderful. Let's take the feet slightly wider, just inside your shoulders, and we're going to reach up on one side. And when we're standing, we're going to repeat this movement on the floor. When we're standing, our spine is a wonderful straight line down the middle. That's that plumb line. And then we've got these lovely curves, different the shape curves for all of us, but we want to try and straighten out the wiggly side, if you like, so that we're making it the same as the straight line that's in the spine. So reaching one arm up, and I'm extending my hand up, so you can't quite see in the monitor there. And then I'm trying to lift up even more, and especially I'm pushing out by my ribs here, so that I'm straightening this whole side. And then take the other arm up, keep both arms up, so reaching up. We normally do this, we do this movement anyway, but it's much more focused on trying to straighten out those curves that are just in the side of your body, and it'll only work on one side. Reaching up, straightening out, so trying to get this lovely length from the fingertips at the top. If I go back a bit more, fingertips at the top to that same side foot, pushing into the floor maybe a little bit with that foot. Brilliant. And come back to your first side. Now I'm reaching up, I'm straightening out this side. I'm going to bend this same side knee, and I'm going to push down into the floor. And it's like I'm trying to split my upper body away from my lower body. Lower body is pushing down, upper body is lifting up. From the front though, it's not this, it doesn't become a side bend, it's a really, really straight line. And then the other side. So 4 of these, reaching up, straightening down this side, keep reaching up, try not to tip over, and push down through that foot. And then swapping sides. Last time, reaching up, pushing down, and then relax. Fantastic. We're going to take the arms forwards, backs of the hands together, and then open the arms out, palms up. So we're trying to shift the rib cage forwards and backwards, as we always do. Keep the legs fairly straight and think about what's happening in your weight as you do this. So the weight through the feet, I should say. Sorry. So as I'm bringing my arms forwards, pushing my rib cage backwards, my weight goes onto my heels. When I open out my arms, pushing my rib cage forwards, bringing my chest forwards, I'm going onto the balls of my feet. Now exaggerate it much more. Bend your knees, tuck your pelvis under to the point where maybe you can lift both feet up, and then open out and take a tiny rise. Doesn't have to be a very big one. Reaching backs of the hands forwards, I'm trying to avoid my wall there, and then lifting up slightly, just so that I know that weight is shifting forwards and backwards in your feet. Wonderful. We're going to come back to that arm a little bit later. Great. So now just taking great big stretch up, stretching out to the corners. It's a bit of a musical theatre moment. So I've got this sort of step, here I am, and then bring both feet together, bend both knees, hug, cross your arms up, cross your chest, make contact with your chest, and if you can, also make contact with your thighs. So you're making a sort of sandwich with your chest and your thighs, an arm sandwich, if your chest and your thighs were slices of bread. And then we're opening out, slightly weird analogy there, and coming down all the way. Opening out and coming in and down. If you can, try and lead with a different leg each time. So I'm just looking at the different shapes. So we're stretching out as much as possible, and then we're coming into quite a tight, small, rounded ball. Just changing the shape. The class is called Lengthen. I want you to imagine you're trying to touch the corners of the room, or a box that you're in, or even a big sphere actually. Imagine there's a big sphere around you, like a big plastic bubble, and you're reaching to the edges each time. Great, okay, challenging that even more. We're going to stay on one leg. We're going to do the same sort of principle. You're going to stay on one leg. I'm going to turn sideways, start on your weaker leg, standing on your weaker leg. We're rounding over, and then we're extending the leg out, extending the arms up. And we're going to take the moving leg to the front. We're rounding over, we're taking it to the side. We're rounding over, we're taking it to the back, we're rounding over, and we're taking it back to the side again. So I'm just going to show you on the other side. So making a tight ball, you can, if you want to, this is the easiest version, to keep this toe touching the floor. Tight ball, stretch everything away. So leg goes to the front, tight ball, stretch everything away. It can be on the floor both times, but most of your weight, 95% of your weight is on that standing leg. It's just when you extend out, goes to the back and goes to the side again. So let's try that twice through. Your second time round, I want you to just make the whole thing bigger by adding a rise, adding a tilt. I really don't mind. Here we go. So we're rounding over. It doesn't have to be perfectly technically balanced or straight. In fact, I actively encourage you to just try and stretch as far away as possible. So for my first round, I'm touching the toe to the floor when I come in, which just gives me a little bit more balance, she says. She puts her foot down. So I've done one side, I'm going to change it to the other side. So we're rounding over, take the leg to the front. Rounding over, take the leg to the side. Maybe a little bit of a tilt. Rounding over, regain that balance. Take the arms up more this time, maybe. And then rounding over, leg to the side. Good, one more each side. This time I'm going to try and keep that leg off all the time. When I extend and lengthen, when I've got to my longest position, I'm going to try and add a little rise. And then I'm rounding over. This time I'm going to add a bit of a tilt as well. I'm rounding over. Stretching arms and legs away. Rising. Beautiful. And rounding over. And then am I going to make this last one? Yes, I did. Didn't have to put that foot down. Pretty good, and that's my weaker leg on the other side. So rounding, tight ball, everything scrunched in, stretch away, add that little rise if you can. So when I'm going to the side, I'm taking a tilt as well, making it much harder. And all of my wobbling about is great. Or if you're wobbling about, perfect. Because your brain, oh I didn't do my rise then, your brain is getting used to adapting, catching that balance, switching all of those balancing muscles on. Really good for the brain and the body in general. Well done if you manage that all the way through. Okay, great. Let's take the legs nice and wide, turn them out in the hip socket. So it's like a ballet plie. I'm just going to pull these up a little bit. So we're going to keep really upright with the back, and we're bending the knees, making sure the knees go out evenly. So perfect symmetry with your spine in the centre. Making sure, really making sure, this is really important, that those knees go over your toes. So from the side, I haven't got flat turnout, but I've got good turnout. My knee's not there. My knee is pushing back. I'm actively pushing my knee back towards my little toe side, but keeping the foot nice and flat. And spine is upright. My spine is staying in the same shape, whether my legs are straight or whether my legs are bent. We're going to add to that, let's just do the arms first. Arms going up to the ceiling, backs of the hands together. I'm just going to bend my knees to show you. And then turning the palms up as you bring the arms down. So keep the legs straight for the moment. Backs of the hands together, turn the palms down. Backs of the hands, backs of the hands. You could imagine that your elbows were leading, or it's like the backs of the hands, the backs of the wrist are leading. And as you do this, try and move your arm in your shoulder as much as possible. So it becomes like a shallow figure of 8 that you're drawing on both sides. So as we go down, we're taking the arms up. So lengthening the spine up through those hands at the top, even though you're dropping down. That's our goal. And breathing wise, I don't normally talk about breathing, but I want to go breath out, breath in. Breath out, breath in. Breath out, breath in. Let's have 2 more. Breath out, breath in. Getting these lovely legs and hips nice and mobilised. Let's stay down if you can. Just the arms on their own. Pin those knees back. Build a little bit of stamina in the legs. This is the beauty of my live classes. If it's too much, you can stop and I can't see you. That's absolutely fine. But maybe another time when you get the recording, if you get the recording, you can stay with it for a little bit longer. But I always like to just push this class a little bit more. Perfect. Okay, we're going to take those legs much wider, much further apart, almost to the corners of my mats. I'm not going to be quite as turned out. And now, but it's equally important, or same sort of thing, spine is upright, chest is upright, knees are going over the toes. And I'm sort of, my toes are aiming for the corner, front corner of my mat. So it's not quite the ballet plie that I had. But I'd like you to have your feet nice and wide so that we can add to this position. So the moment the spine is upright, lengthen that spine, lengthen that arm and reach up towards the ceiling. It might be comfortable to just put your elbow on that thigh. You might not be that low. It's absolutely fine. Swapping to the other side. Try and get this sense of reaching that top arm away from the same side foot. And again, creating that straight line if you can. It's quite strong. Strong on your knees. If your knees hurt, make sure that you're really in good alignment with them. I'm not sure which side I started. I think I'm going to do two more. Over and over. Great job. Okay, keeping the legs where they are. Bend both knees. Coming down to the floor. Have a little look. We're going into this movement, which is pretty much what we just did, apart from you're going to keep your legs bent as you swap from side to side. This is a movement I use all the time. And then we're going to take the opposite hand to the foot and then reach the other arm up to the ceiling for a nice rotation. Swap sides. Again, we're looking for length in the spine. So I'm reaching that arm up. I'm imagining a straight line through the hand, through the arm, through the shoulders to the floor. I'm really rotating around. Keep breathing, keep moving, try not to get stuck. Great, I'm going to stay on this side. I'm going to turn all the way around to the short edge of my mat. My feet are already in the perfect position for our lunge position. The knee is above the ankle. This time we're taking the opposite hand to the floor. So actually, same as what we just did. And then the same arm is going to do the lizard, the same arm as that front leg. You're reaching forwards, you're circling up and back, you're following it with your head, you're getting towards your hips, then you're bringing that elbow over. I'm just trying to get my other shoulder out of the way, tucking this shoulder in to touch your inside of your knee before you go again. So all the way round. Tuck in and forwards and up and back. Tuck in. 5 of these. I'm going to do 2 more. Tuck in. Last one. This is called the lizard. It comes from our animal flow movement that we did. Really important. Keep the feet where they are, as in the distance apart, but turn all the way around to the other side. Make sure that front knee is above your ankle, or if not slightly behind your ankle. Opposite hand to the floor. We're reaching forwards. There's a little, I come over my toes on that back leg. I'm really reaching forwards. Then I'm reaching up. As the arm goes back, I'm pushing back a little bit into that heel. Bringing the arm over, tucking the elbow in, making contact with that shoulder to the inside of the knee. Reach forwards. Up and back, down. 3 more. Reach forwards, up and back, forwards, up and back. Last one, I do believe we're there. And then we're going to wiggle back round to the front. Walk those feet in so that they're parallel, maybe shoulder width apart. Legs are bent. Nod the head, shake the head. And then let's roll up through the spine, unravelling the spine. Whew, bit of a stretchy one today. Let's carry on. One last thing before we come down to the floor. what I call my dance stretches. Haven't done these for a little while. Feet are wide, wider than your shoulders, and really parallel. And then just mirror me. So you're taking one arm up to the ceiling, turning your shoulders and your ribs only. The feet and the knees are still, and the hips still facing forwards. I'm turning and then I'm reaching and I'm lengthening towards the corner. Reaching this top arm that's by my ear forwards towards the corner, reaching the back arm that's glued to my side away. So those arms are going in opposite directions. You're going to feel a strong stretch on the back of the leg that you're reaching towards. Then relax down, hang on to that lower leg, take the head towards the knee. You will now feel an even stronger stretch on the leg that you're holding on to. Try and keep that leg really straight. Then bend the other knee. If your feet are wide enough apart, you should feel the stretch change. It's quite different now. It should be on the inside thigh of the straight leg, of the one you're hanging on to, that lower leg. Then we're taking that same arm up to the ceiling, opposite hand is hanging onto the lower leg so that you can rotate around. Relax the arm down, relax your head and shoulders in the middle, bend both knees, roll up in the middle, let the arms hang, tuck that pelvis under, unravel all the way to the top. Good job. All on the other side. We're just going to do it one more time. Hips, legs stay exactly where they are. Turn towards the corner. Here's our length. Lengthen forwards. Try and keep that arm up by your ear. It's a big hip hinge. It's a strong hamstring stretch. Try and keep the other arm, the back arm, glued to your side. Then relax down. Holding on to that lower leg. Aim to get your head towards your knee. It might not happen, don't worry. Just do what you can. Keep breathing. Then we're bending the other knee. Make sure that knee doesn't roll in. Push it out towards your little toes. Notice the change in the stretch, in the tension. If you don't feel it, maybe you need to go slightly wider with your feet. And then take the arm up to the ceiling, rotate around. Opposite hand is on the foot, the lower leg. The same arm is up to the ceiling. Keep pushing that knee out. Relax in the middle. Bend those knees, roll up strongly, pushing the pubic bone forwards. Support that spine all the way up as you unravel to get to the top. Great. We are coming down to the floor. We're going to think about a little bit what we were doing when we were standing up, where we were pushing the floor away, outwards and inwards with our feet and our legs. We're going to do that with our arms first of all. So really make sure that you spread fingers and thumbs far apart. Be in the perfect position with your spine. So I'm just going to tuck this in so that you can see what's going on. So spine is in its natural curves, hands are underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath your hips. You've got a right angle at the legs, a right angle at the arms. Just push arms out sideways. Push your hands out sideways. Turn your elbows inwards to sort of so that the inside of your elbows they're facing each other. So no bending the arms. Keep the arms nice and straight. Push your hands into the floor, push them outwards, away from each other, towards your little finger side, and just lift your back of your head and neck up as much as you can. You should hopefully feel that you've sort of hit a brick wall. And what will happen is that your rib cage is going to be in the absolute perfect position. This is part of using the floor to lengthen away. So we want to lengthen the spine. You're lengthening out through the top of your head, you're lengthening out your tailbone in the opposite direction. But we're sort of going to move in that way in a little bit. But this is more about lifting up and out of the floor to create this perfect position and this in the perfect position with the shoulder blades against the rib cage wall. So we're going to push out. We're going to relax those muscles, and then you're going to allow your ribs to drop down towards the floor, and then to come back up, you're going to push out again. So you're pushing out, you come up to the optimum position, there's no further, I can't go any further here. And then I relax those muscles a little bit. I keep my arms straight. I allow my rib cage to drop down, and then I'm lifting back up by pushing out. So if I had a measure here, if you're not really feeling this, have a little look again. If I had a measure on my wall, look how much my rib cage moves. And it's not just the rib cage, it's from my bra strap up to the top of my head. That whole section moves. Nothing else moves, hopefully. So I'm pushing out. Now I'm relaxing. So in class, people have been saying 3 or 4 inches, pushing out, dropping down. So once you imagine that happening in your body, you might not be able to feel it, but also what happens is your arms are here. As the ribs drop down, you probably can't see it in this t-shirt, but as the ribs drop down, the shoulder blades slide towards each other to sort of take up the slack, if you like, to close the door behind the gap that the rib cage has left. And then when you push up, shoulder blades open out again to the sides. So that's what we're looking for, dropping all the way down, lifting back up again. A really important movement for your serratus, your scapular stability, but really nice for using the floor for that. Okay, so from here, all good for shoulder stability as well. From here, we're moving on into a sort of lengthening exercise, thinking about your tailbone lengthening away. So curling the toes under, we're going to lift the hips up, you're going to send your tailbone away, you're going to push your chest through your arms, and then come forwards again, shoulders over your hands, lower the knees with control. So we're lifting the hips up, straightening the legs if you can. Heels don't need to be down. My heels aren't down because I've got tight Achilles. But the important part is this lifting of the hips, hinging at the hips, and then sending my tailbone and the top of my head. They're lengthening away in opposite directions. And again, we're using the floor here, which feels really nice. Great. From there, so just a few of those. We're going to bring the feet and knees together. In between, maybe when you're watching, do some sea anemones for me. So just keep those wrists nice and active. We've got a couple more things on the wrists, or on our all 4 positions. From here, hands are underneath the shoulders. Knees and feet are together because you want a nice narrow base for this. I'm going to draw my knee in, keeping my foot quite relaxed on the floor. I'm trying not to change the shape of my lower back or of my back completely. I'm not trying to take a rounded position that we were doing earlier. I'm just drawing that knee in. It might not go very far, it's absolutely fine. Then I'm going to slide that leg out straight, keeping my toe in contact with the floor, and then just lift it up so it's level with the hips parallel to the floor. And then bring it back in, swap sides. Draw the knee in, no change in my lower back, extend the leg, get it nice and straight, then lift it up and come back in. In fact, let's stay on one side for 3 or 4. So draw the knee in, slide away, lift it, extend, lengthen those toes away. All the time pulling crown of the head forwards. So I draw the knee in, stay on the same side, lift. Let's do 4 of these. Noticing that your body shape isn't changing, shape of the spine isn't changing. Let's try the other side. Keep pushing out a little bit with those hands towards your little finger side. Keep the shoulder girdle nice and stable. Drawing the knee in, extending. I've got my foot pointed. So trying not to lift the leg until you've lengthened away as much as you can on the floor, and then lift it up. When it's up, you're trying to lengthen away without actually moving back. Okay, here's the grand finale of that exercise. So I'm curling my toes under, I'm lifting my hips up, and I'm in my, like a downward dog position. I'm going to lift the leg up, and then I'm coming forwards. No, I'm not, sorry everyone. We're going to go from the plank. So, but the plank, but be a little bit further forwards than normal maybe. On one side, draw the knee in, extend the leg, then we're lifting into our downward dog. Got there in the end. Draw the knee in, extend, lift. Draw the knee in, extend and lift. Think about that wonderful length. I'm going to do one more. Draw the knee in, extend, straight leg. I feel like I'm actually stretching my my yoga mat apart a little bit. Great, on the other side, now that I know what I'm doing, I'm going to swap sides just so you can see. So we want to start in the plank, but we want to start quite far forwards with the shoulders. So feet and knees together so that your base is nice and narrow. Draw the knee in, try not to change the shape of your back. Extend and lift and lengthen that leg away. Draw the knee in, extend, keep it nice and straight, keep that foot pointed. Think of lengthening those toes away from your fingertips. Lengthen out through the top of the head. I don't know why, we're going to do one more on this side. Extra Billy bonus one. And woo, down onto your knees. Really do some work with those wrists now. Twiddle them around, sea anemones, make your wrists nice and strong and warm. Get some blood flow there, get some healing blood flow going on. Wonderful. We are going to lie on our backs for some abdominals. I'm going to put this on the back side. I'm going to go at a slight angle this time. Great job. So we're lying on the back in the base position. So feet and knees are hip width apart now. Just take a moment to settle your spine. Feel how everything is on the mat. Curve at the nape of the neck, the curve in the lower back. Good neutral pelvis, pubic bone and hip bones level with each other. If you lift your head up, are your knees at the same height? Are those hip width apart? If you look through, can you see the same amount of your feet? Hopefully that everything's in the right position. Lie back down again. Get those shoulders, collarbone to be opened up, nice and relaxed. Feel like all of your ribs at the back are in contact with the mat. So those lower ones, and especially where we've been working quite hard, might be a little bit lifted, a little bit flared. Try and relax them down. And then we're going to think about how we switch on our torso when we're doing abdominal work. So for me there are three areas. The first one is your ribs. Your rib cage connects to your hips by drawing down. So you lose the flaring ribs, even if you're even if you think you've set them, they probably will be a little bit flared. So connect them down to join up with those hip bones. So there's a rod either side from those floating ribs to the hip bones. Lift your pelvic floor. Think about the direction of the pelvic floor. Pelvic floor is going to go horizontally, parallel to the floor. It's going to go from your pubic bone towards your head internally. So lift that and then draw your belly button gently towards your spine. That's going vertically. So it's going from the ceiling down towards the floor. But although those two things are happening in the same area, and although they're going in different directions, there is absolutely no change to your neutral pelvis. No change to the shape of that lower back. No change to pubic bone and hip bones being on the same plane. No change to both sides of your hips being equally weighted. Nothing has changed. You've just lifted up and drawn down a little bit. Not a huge amount, but that's what we call what I call switching on your torso. So from here, let's just bring your feet and knees. Actually, no, let's stay where we are. Sorry. Stay hip width apart for a moment. Imagine the fact, let's take the hands at the back of the head. Interlace your hands, elbows out to the side, so you're getting quite a nice stretch across the front of the chest. Imagine that your feet your legs weigh 10 Pilates pounds. Just in this position, you're equally weighted, heels, front of the feet, all the way around, both feet, equally weighted. Now try and lift them off, so you unweight them so that they only weigh 2 Pilates pounds. So you unweight them and then you relax and you go back to them weighing 10 Pilates pounds. So notice what's going on in your body here. Ideally, you will be switched on in the torso all the way through, especially with the ribs. The ribs is probably the most important one. And then the pelvic floor and the belly button drawing down will happen a little bit more subtly, and that should happen when you go to unweight those feet. And then you can probably allow those to relax a little bit. If you allow the ribs to relax, you'll probably change the shape of your spine slightly and flare the ribs at the front. So keep the ribs drawn down. So we're lifting, we're unweighting. We're not actually lifting the feet off of the floor at all. There's no daylight underneath them. They're still in contact with the floor, but they only weigh 2 Pilates pounds as opposed to 10 Pilates pounds. Showing my age here, talking about pounds. I think it's just because it's it's a UK, it's a sterling thing. Okay, so feet and knees are together. Now we're going to raise the heels, slide your toes in, so pointing your feet basically, but allow your feet to relax until the point, bring your knees in so that your knees are directly above your hips, and then lift the legs so that the shins are parallel to the floor. Hold that there. So we're now in a double knee fold position, sort of. Then we're going to lower the feet, so relax the lower leg. We're going to lower the toes to the floor, and then we're lowering the heels to the floor. So feet and knees together, let's go again. So the first thing we're doing, I'm going to give these counts. Number 1 is lift the heels off. Number 2 is knees directly above your hips. Number 3 is lifting the lower leg up. So in a tabletop position, but feet and knees are together. 4 is lowering the feet. 5 is lowering the toes to the floor. 6 is lowering the heels back down. So 6 movements. Do it again, a couple more times. Notice which of those 6 movements you find the hardest. Where do you have to work the hardest to maintain your neutral spine, your lower back curve? Where do you have to really allow those, or really switch on that torso to support your back without any change? So 1 is the heels, 2 is the knees above the hips, but so a really 90-degree angle with your knees, but the feet relaxed. Then you're lifting the legs, noticing the difference with that weight of the lower legs lifting up, lowering the feet to and then lowering the toes to the floor and lowering the heels. So for me it's number 5. Number 5 is I find the hardest. So 1 is easy peasy, 2 is quite strong, but as long as everything's switched on, you're okay. 3 is easy, but you just notice the difference, hopefully. 4 really easy because you've taken that extra length away. And then 5 is the hardest bit because the length of the leg, the length of the thigh, and the weight of both legs together is tipping away from your centre. But you've got to keep your pelvis absolutely in neutral, and then heels down is the easiest. Okay, great. Let's add on to this. So we're going to take the heels out, keep your toes together. So we've just internally rotated the thighs a little bit. Squeeze your knees together. Bring your elbows forwards. Hug your armpits around your ribs if you like. Slide those hips, no. It is a Thursday. Slide the shoulder blades down in your back. That's the one, Mandy, well done. From there, we're taking abdominal curls. We've been working on this quite a lot lately. You only need to clear your shoulder blades by 1 centimetre, 1 fingertip, one of my tiny, teeny fingertips. But everything in that torso is staying in exactly the same place. All of those 3 areas are switched on. Plus, I'm now adding an extra pelvic floor bit of work going on by squeezing the knees together, turning those thighs inwards, squeezing the toes together. There's no change in the relationship between my chin and my chest. My head is relaxed because it's totally supported by my arms. I'm starting to shake a little bit, but that's just me being tired. Okay, we're going to add on to this. Let's bring those heels together. You're going to lift your upper body into that abdominal curl. As you lower the upper body, lift your feet up, lift your legs up into your tabletop position. As you lower the legs, lift the upper body into your abdominal curl. And then lower as you lift the legs. It's called the seesaw. Try and get to the end position of your legs and your upper body at the same time, whether that's so here, upper body is up just as my feet have touched. I'm at the highest point, I can't come up any higher. My legs are lifting just as my head brushes the floor. I'm staying switched on in the centre. This is hard work. Trying not to hold the breath, trying not to cheat and set off one part and then the other part. Try and hinge from the ribs and the hips, working very strongly in that abdominal wall. Oh, good job. Okay, 1:45. I feel like I've got quite a lot of time today. Let's repeat the movement we did standing in the warm-up. We did it with onto one leg, but let's take that big stretched out position on our backs, and then let's draw feet and knees in. Hug your knees in to your chest. Try and get your chin onto your knees. That lower back is going to come off. We're completely not in a neutral spine now. We're really rounded. And then hold in the breath slightly as you lower, and then extend out to your opposite corners of the room again. Take a big breath in here, and then breathe out. As you squeeze in with those knees, try and tuck everything in, both ends coming in towards each other. Hold the breath momentarily, and then big breath in. 2 more. Breathing out, hugging in. Whoop, I'm rolling over on my very rounded back. Last one, this time, so stretch out, big breath in, drawing in, relax and roll over onto your side just to face the screen or the camera. Relax the underneath arm and leg and rest your head on the floor if you can. And then stretch, top arm and top leg away. Really feel like you're pushing this side rib cage up to the ceiling. You can have that foot slightly off the floor, and this is our lengthen. Lengthen down that side. Stretch the fingertips away from the toes, and then nice and relaxed again, roll onto your back. So you've got one side straight, and then straighten out on the other side bent, and then straighten out the other side, back into your big capital X. One last time, drawing everything in. This time, oh, I'm about to be eaten alive by Mozzie. We're rolling away from the camera. Relax that underneath side. Stretch top arm and top leg away. Really try and push that side seam, that armpit, up towards the ceiling. Lengthen away in a beautiful straight line. Rolling onto your back, and extend everything one last time. Wonderful. We are sitting up, and we're going to lie on our sides. So thinking again about using the floor to try and get length and straighten out, especially the side of the body for this movement. So I'm going to use my yoga mat as my measure of where I want my body to be. My spine is lined up with the back edge of the mat. You can have this arm straight, or you can bend the elbow. For me, it just makes my elbow hurt after a little bit, so I prefer a straight arm. Legs are equivalent to our tabletop here. So they're basically at a right angle. Your knees are opposite your hips, your feet are underneath your knees. So on my yoga mat, my shins are in line with the front of the yoga mat. And this is a 90-degree angle here. And also my body's at a 90-degree angle to the legs. Allow your underneath side to go completely relaxed. And if you can, be very aware of the whole of the side seam, the whole of your body that's in contact with the floor. Try and allow it all to be in contact with the floor. And then what I want you to do is use the floor to push away, especially on that underneath side. So I'm pushing around my shoulder blade, my armpit if you like, and now I can get my fingertip underneath my armpit to the edge of my shoulder blade. I can feel. I'm lifted at the side of my bra strap, I'm lifted in all my ribs, I'm lifted in my waist, and it's right down to my hip at the side. That is all lifted away from the floor. I don't think you can quite see it, but it's all lifted away from the floor. I'm pushing down on the floor using the underneath side of my body. I'm also going to push down on this underneath leg, and this takes a little bit of getting used to. The key here is if I just allow my foot to relax, if I don't push down on that shin, my ankle will be quite relaxed. I'm going to push my shin down, my ankle down, my thigh all the way down. Great. So then what we've done is we've made the spine nice and straight. When we were collapsed and relaxed, the spine went a bit wiggly because it was mirroring the shape of the side of our body. But now we've straightened, well, now we've lifted that up, so we've got those curves, but they're not into the floor. We've created this lovely straight line. Now we're lifting and lowering the top leg on its own. So pushing down on that underneath side. If you get a bit necky, and this is always my necky side for some reason, just turn your head towards the mat a little bit. Maybe change that arm position. So hips are stacked, knees are one on top of each other, the foot and the knee are lifting and lowering at the same height. I'm working hard, I'm still working hard. I have to keep reminding myself to push down on that underneath leg. I'm used to pushing down on this underneath side. You might start to feel a bit of work in this buttock, in this hip, which is good. But I feel like I'm just working hard all over because I'm concentrating on pushing down into the floor. Then I'm going to hold my leg up at this 90-degree angle. I'm going to sweep the leg back, keeping the leg bent. I'm going to put my hand on my butt actually, and sort of push it forwards almost. Not push it forwards, but what I want you to feel here is a wonderful stretch at the front of your hip flexors. The front of your hips as you sweep that leg back. So we're not extending the leg, we're not bending it anymore, keep it in the same angle. Now because we're moving this leg, I'm struggling to push down on this one into the floor a little bit, but that's fine. We're changing the emphasis slightly. I've still got my ribs and waist lifted off of the floor. I'm going to go back to straightening that arm up before my elbow starts to hurt. The focus here is this stretch and keeping your pelvis, your lower back especially, really nice and still. Couple more. I can feel my butt activating as I sweep the leg back. And I'm going to make this the last one. Think of the length from your hip bone to your knee along that thigh. Keep that thigh really still and then straighten that leg. See if you can sweep the leg back a tiny bit more. Now reach the same arm forwards, but to the corner, the opposite corner at the front of your room, the front of your box. The leg behind you is reaching to the back corner. It's like you're doing half of a capital X from above. And keep lengthening away. And relax and collapse. Well done. Let's go all of that on the other side. So, spine lined up with the back edge of the mat. in your natural curves. Knees opposite your hips at a right angle, shins at a right angle to your thighs so that they're in line with the front of the mat. Relax everything. Just really take a moment to sort of savour how this feels. And the thing I notice the most is my top hip rolls inwards a little bit. And then when that rolls inwards, it changes the position of my top knee. My top knee is slightly behind my underneath knee. Then when I do the pushing down, I stack my hips one on top of each other. I end up with my knees exactly one on top of each other. Checking for that underneath side, checking that everything is lifted. And I'm pushing down, I'm not relaxing that underneath ankle, I'm pushing down that leg. Then I'm lifting and lowering. Now Gary said he wasn't going to go out during class, but he obviously has. Good old gravel on the driveway. And now the dog wants to come in. Excellent. So we're lifting and lowering, keeping the knee and the foot parallel. So there's no rotation here, we're just lifting and lowering. We're basically taking abduction. Pushing down on that underneath side. Remember, if you get necky, turn your face towards the floor. So this side for me is already quite worn out. I don't feel as if I can do as many reps because I was pushing down on this side, on the other side. This top leg I'm talking about, sorry, not making much sense. And then keep the leg bent, sweeping it back. Put your hand maybe in the small of your back to keep that hip absolutely still. And it also helps me to sort of try and tuck under a little bit. So I really get this stretch at the front of my hip. Trying not to let the pelvis rock and roll forwards and backwards. And I'm going to hold this last one back. Knee as far away from the hip as I can. Lengthen that thigh. Extend the leg. Really straighten the leg. Then see if you can sweep it back a little bit more. Then reach the the same arm forwards. All the way forwards to the front corner. The leg is reaching to the back corner. Your top shoulder will roll over and round a little bit forwards. It doesn't matter. Lengthen away, lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. Keep stretching away. Get that lovely length in the limbs, going in opposite direction, and then relax. Well done. Wonderful. We are going to lie on our tummies to finish off. In fact, before you lie down, just have a very quick look. We're going to wipe the hands up the side seam of your torso, past your ears, and then we're going to extend them forwards. Once we've done a couple of shoulder lifts, I'm going to go slightly this way with my mat, pushing that out of the way. Wonderful. So we're lying on our fronts. Connect your rib cage. Lift your legs out of your hips, sort of thing. Feet and knees hip width apart. Arms down by your side. The backs of your hands on the floor. Really nice and relaxed. The tip of your nose just touching the floor. Allow your shoulders to round forwards. Allow them to go into what I call Quasimodo mode. So, and they might be touching the floor. The front of your shoulders might be touching the floor. They might not. But try and feel that they're quite even. So imagine from shoulder to shoulder, the seam of your t-shirt or your top if you were wearing a t-shirt. At the moment you've got a curved line, and the height of that curve is the middle of your upper back. Then I just want you to lift your shoulders so that you're creating a straight line from shoulder to shoulder, across your collarbone basically. So you're allowing your collarbone, it's like your collarbone is rounding, it's not quite your collarbone, but imagine that. So you've rounded and then you've lifted into a straight line. Backs of the hands heavy. No elbows bending, no using your triceps here. The arm will lift, the upper arm will lift, but try not to let it make any changes. So now lift those shoulders up, keep them in that straight line. Push your pubic bone into the mat a little bit. Maybe lift the back of the head and neck up slightly, just so that your head and neck is in line with the rest of your spine. Keep those shoulders where they are. Now wipe your hands up the side seam of your torso, come past your armpits. Lengthen your arms forwards. There's that word again, lengthen. I actually say it quite a lot in class anyway. I didn't realise how much I say it, but we're on our little finger side and thumbs are up towards the ceiling. Keep your arms fairly straight. Push down through those little fingers and lift your upper back as much or as little as you would like to, keeping the chin tucked in, thinking of lengthening out through the crown of the head. And if you keep your arms quite straight and draw those shoulder blades down in your back, you might be surprised how far you come up. So lengthening away out through the top of the head. And then we're going to lower. This time I'm going to turn my palms down. So I've come back to my lower ribs are in contact with the floor at the front. I've tucked my chin in, so not quite as lifted, but a little bit lifted in the upper back. Now make half a grapefruit with each, or a spider with each hand. Dig your fingertips, your fingers into the floor. Arms are straight so the elbows are off. Now grip the floor like you're hanging on to the edge of a cliff. Almost pull yourself forwards. Lengthen out through the top of your head. Lengthen your toes away from your fingertips. Holding it there. Just take some really big deep breaths. See if you can come back to what we did at the very beginning of class when we were standing with the hands at the back of the head. We breathed into both sets of gills, the two at the front, two at the back, and then we tried to keep that space there as we breathe out. We tried to lengthen more. So breathing in, keep that expansion around your rib cage, but draw the belly button away from your waistband as you breathe out, lengthening, working hard, shoulder blades drawing down in my back. Using the floor again, we're pulling, we're pushing it against the floor, using it to help us activate all of those muscles. And relaxing. Woo. Really good. Great job. Coming up onto all fours. So your wiggle about today, if you've got time, if you choose to, is just to have a make lengthening movements. Send the opposite arm and leg away in the same direction. Reach up to the ceiling. Come back to that thing I mentioned at the beginning. You're surrounded by a big sphere, and you're trying to touch the edges. You might be here, you might be extending one leg away. Just try and do something you haven't ever done before. Sweep the arm round to try and touch every edge, and maybe up and round, and then that feels nice. I've never done that before. But just have a bit of a woo, lengthen, strengthen, and thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you next week.